In today's video, I'm going to be painting a mountain. Hello everyone, my name is Mike Dawson and today I'm going to be painting this scene of Mount Everest. It's been really great fun painting it. The size is 32 inches by 20 inches, oil on a canvas panel, and I hope you enjoy the process I went through to paint it. So here we are, starting out with, as normal, a bird umber kind of wash over a canvas panel. Now this canvas panel is one that I made myself. It consists of a 12mm MDF sheet that's been sanded a little bit to actually prepare the surface, and then stick the canvas, quite nice canvas, over the top of it. It is as easy as it sounds, although there's a few things you've got to bear in mind, but maybe I should do a video of that at some point in the future. Remember to iron the canvas before you put it on there. That's for a few reasons. Firstly, it gets out all the creases, but also if you have a steam iron, which I recommend. The steam iron makes the canvas gives it a little bit of moisture in there, so that when you put the PVA wood glue onto the panel and then the canvas on there, it doesn't just immediately suck all the moisture out of the glue. So it gives it time to, enables you to actually position it, roll it down flat, and then it adheres. And once you're finished, you just trim off any excess around the outside and you've got a wonderful, really heavy duty canvas panel, rather than just maybe a 2 or 3mm panel, which kind of flexes a little bit. And a lot of the time, especially on these larger pieces, I'm not too keen on a flexible, wobbly bit of canvas. But each their own. A lot of people like a canvas, normal stretched canvas. But anyway, in this one, it's a canvas panel. So what I've done is just sketched out the outline of the mountain and where the people are going to be, and using just some phthalo blue, some cadmium blue, avoiding ultramarine blue for this one, even though you kind of think it needs it. But if you look at the sky, it's actually really dark, really dark, deep blue. But it's not that ultramarine purpley blue. It's more of what I would think of phthalo blue to look like, with some titanium white to get into the horizon and almost the glow that's coming from around the mountain. And then the section of doing the clouds. This is a technique that I learned from one of my friends, Neil Adams, who has got a website called Big Norfolk Skies. He's on Instagram too. Check out his work, it's fantastic. He's based just down the road from me in Norfolk, and he paints Big Norfolk Skies. If you're not really familiar with around here, it's very flat. It's the Broads National Park is just down the road. And it's just wonderful. Great for holidays and days out, so give it a look out. But anyway, one of the great things about it is these skies. Because everywhere is so flat, it looks like the skies are way bigger than you can ever imagine. And one of the things that Neil is really great at is painting clouds. So he's taught me this method of just creeping up on a cloud formation ever so gently. Hold the brush between your finger and the thumb and forefinger, and just dab and roll the brush around, just so that you create that wonderful ethereal mist that is a cloud, especially these particular ones coming off Everest. And you can only imagine what it's like at 25,000 feet up, 7,000 meters. And oh no, it's more than that, it's about 8,000 or so meters, isn't it? And you're buffeted by these incredible winds. Even though it looks sunny, it's probably minus lots of degrees. And these people waiting in line, as you can see on the photograph, the reference photograph. This reference photograph also I've modified from the original. The original had someone's clothing in the bottom right-hand corner. It just detracted from what I thought the image was, so I photoshopped the area of this craggy kind of ice shelf wall there. But I wanted to keep in, I put in two elements that continue this dynamic line. So the two parts of darker area where in the ice. I added those in just so the line of the people wouldn't be immediately abruptly stopped, to kind of carry on down the angle of the sheet, which kind of works quite well, I think. Anyway, moving on to the blocking of the actual mountain itself. With all these blockings, especially on this, there's a huge amount of detail here, and it would be very easy to be caught between a very much painterly abstract painting and trying to do something photorealistic. I'm not going to be doing something that is really very photorealistic, because, quite frankly, you might as well just print the photograph onto a canvas, hang it on a wall, job done. So what I'm after is just trying to create a little bit more of what I feel this painting is all about. Yeah, it's bleak and it's rugged, but while it is those bleak ruggedness, it's not totally devoid of life. I mean, obviously there's people there, but after I've done this initial blocking, which just mainly uses ivory black, a little bit of burnt umber, and titanium white to give it this base colour. I'm going to be going over some of this to knock back some of the contrasts with this very dark areas, of which don't give a real depth of feel to this at all. So once I've done all these, I'll be heading over with a glaze of cobalt blue and titanium white, just to knock all that area, the parts I'm doing there, knock it back a little bit, because at the moment I can see that it's way too black. And like all paintings, avoid going too black and avoid going too light. So I'd say, with looking at the detail of all of this, what I'm very mindful of is just look at the reference photo and take cues from that. It's not going to be a case of copying every single rock, but don't make too much up, because if you start making things up, you step back after an hour or so and it just looks like a jumble of just mess, which is not what we're after. What we're after is we're describing these different areas of rock. So moving on a little bit now, I've filled in the majority of the detail in the background and added a little bit of wash to actually knock those areas back. The video looks way different to the reference photo, in that the reference photo has got super high contrast, whereas this video is lacking somewhat in that. Rest assured, the actual painting is a little bit higher contrast than what it looks like. So the final part of this section before we get onto the people is to add in a little bit of the high contrast foreground elements. Again, just look at the reference. And also what I'm doing now is, rather than just laying the brush marks down, I'm stippling areas a little bit more, because as you can see in the reference photo, it looks like where, if people haven't walked there, there's been lots of activity, maybe just bits of snow or hail or whatever has bombarded this section. So it's pitted and creviced quite a lot, and that's what I'm recreating with this kind of impasto that I've got going on in this section. Again, take your time. This is using quite a small flat. Moving on to the people, and it's probably the more enjoyable part of it, when it really starts to come together. Now, with painting people, especially lots of people, small people like this, it's kind of be very mindful of what you're painting. You're painting actual people, and these people have got typically a head, shoulders, body, arms, legs, And have that in mind when you're like adding each individual character. It's not necessarily a case of a blob, 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 hoping that they'll come together in the end, of which obviously we all are. But this is very much a case of look at the reference and think about the size of the people, look at the shadows that are already there or any that have been created, and add each individual element on. And when they get closer, clearly they're getting a lot larger. So think about that. And then as you can see, there's right in the, or just below the center of the frame here, there's one individual person with the arm out on the side of the mountain. It's people, the individual elements like that are really important to observe as well as you can, because it's seeing those elements gives people that that cue to think, hold on a minute, all of those dots there, they're people as well. So it's one of those kind of tricks of the trade, or is that just a trick full stop? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, keeping in mind any kind of radiated colour or any shadows that need to be added as well. Just always playing the two off each other, what the actual people are, what they should be doing, and how the colour and light reflected on them, and any kind of colour that's radiated from them onto any kind of surrounding surfaces. Because this snow is going to pick up lots of colours from everything around. As you can see on this section of people here, there on the right hand side we've got some warmer tones, well, kind of red and purple, kind of more ultramarine type tones of what's coming off their clothing. If their clothing is going to be red or blue, it's going to affect that way more. So now in this section, we're just adding the final few bits and pieces, a few elements of the foreground characters. Again, I don't want to create too much detail in these characters here, because the rest haven't got a huge amount of detail. And if I was to create more detail here, it would detract from the other parts of the painting. And arguably, the painting isn't about just these three characters, three people in the foreground. Clearly they're an important part, but very much the important part is the mountain and the collective people waiting in line. I can only imagine what that was like, waiting all those hours, feeling that you could probably go faster, that you've only got a limited amount of time to peak, to get to the Everest peak, or summit I should say, but you're held up. Anyway, so what we have here, the final touches. I'm happy with how the painting has gone thus far, and as ever, like when doing a portrait, I always enjoy getting those final highlights in there. This is pretty much neat titanium white. There's a little bit of cadmium yellow actually in this.
And there you have it, the final painting. I hope you enjoyed the 10-15 minutes or so it's taken to get this far, and you picked up a few insights along the way. It was certainly great fun me painting it, and looked forward to doing more landscapes and sharing them with you in the coming weeks, months and years. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe and thumbs up like the video, and indeed check out my website, mikedawsonart.co.uk. Until next time, enjoy your painting.